Good afternoon. Thanks for being here after lunch and after this important speaking event at the arena. It's an honor to have you here. I see some friends in the audience. Thanks for supporting. So I'm very excited to moderate this roundtable on the topic we love most and are most concerned about, which is the food system. So with me, I have Juancho Escobar, who is the CEO and founder of Comer, and also the commercial director of Solinta, which is one big player in the food industry. And we will be speaking about the biggest challenges and opportunities within our sector. So to kick off this conversation, I would like to start by asking my panelists, what are your companies doing to recover the food system? And just a brief line on the main purpose of your organizations in case some people in the public don't know about them. So please, Juancho.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bea, and the organization for the invitation to share with you the ideas and the work when we developed in Comer bioactive ingredients. Comer is a technological and sustainable based company. We put into the market natural and sustainable ingredients. We used to work with farmers and peasants and communities in the origin countries, mostly America and Asia. After that, we moved to here, to Spain, where we have our laboratory in order to measure the quality of technological science of the ingredients, and at the end we also measure the sustainability of the supply chain. That's why we have several stamps and certifications, and we can prove that the quality of the ingredients are the best natural ingredients that you can have in the market, and also we have the methodology in order to measure the impact of the whole business system that we develop with the peasants, farmers, exporters, importers, and at the end, how the industry, the food, pharma, nutraceutical, and cosmetic and agricultural inputs industry could use these kind of ingredients in order to provide an end consumer product.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak and to share the experience Solinta's had in this value chain discussion, let's call it. It's really important, and it changes quite regularly, and the current events are making it change even more dramatically. Solinta is a hybrid potato breeding company. I'm the commercial director there, as you said. We're based in the Netherlands, and we use hybrid breeding to help create a sustainable future. And what does that mean? It means that we breed new varieties of potatoes that create value for farmers, and that help reduce chemical usage, help increase yield, and provide farmers with a much more sustainable and cost-efficient crop, hopefully creating a better lifestyle for those farmers. And basically, to summarize, what we do is we try to unlock the potential of potatoes.
Thank you. You both mentioned impact and the impact our current production system on our economy, on our society, on our planet and people isn't great. So some data says that we are losing 70% of biodiversity, 50% of our topsoil. Also data related to our health, 40% of the population obese, while 800 million don't have enough access. 70% of the water in the world is being used to produce the food we need, while some people don't even have access to this water. So all of these inconsistencies show us that we need to change and shift the way we are producing and distributing our food. So I was curious to hear what each of your companies is doing in this regards to shift these negative impacts to some very positive ones in the upcoming years.
It's a great question because, first of all, the most important thing is to measure the baseline than where is the initial point that you are working with the peasants and the farmers in our case. We are making in this moment the baseline of the organization, the communities, and the cities and the countries where we are working with. From that sense, we are having information that is going to give us the key how to join them, how to join the people, how to join the producers of the ingredients in order to improve their way of living. We are not talking only about the quality of the ingredient. We are not only talking about the amount of ingredients that we are going to get from such a part of the world. We are talking about how is the behave or how is the way of living of these people, of these communities, and Comer is able to join them and in order to articulate not only the commercialization of the ingredients, but also with national or supranational organizations in order to develop and article several projects thinking on an international development way of living. That's our main topic, that is our purpose. Then all the business development which is surrounding the natural and sustainable ingredient is adding value not only in a financial way, but also in a social, in an economical, and in an environmental way. That's the things that we are doing in this moment. And at the end, we need to have more business development in order to have the power to be able to impact in a bigger amount or in a bigger form in the peasants and farmers in the origin countries.
Thank you.
I think it's a really important question that you ask. And as I said in the introduction, the world's changing. And as an industry and as a people, we have to change as well. And if you think about the food that people eat, you know, how is that selected? How are we producing maize in certain climates? Look at potatoes. Potatoes use less water than maize to create the same amount of nutritional benefit. So why use maize and not potatoes? And at Solenta, we were actually founded on the principle that potatoes' potential has not been unlocked. And that potential is not just about extra yield for a farmer that creates extra income. It's about how the lifestyle is impacted of those farmers, the villages, and the entire value chain around potatoes. I mean, another interesting fact, I think, is you talk about food security. Well, there's also nutritional security that's a really important thing to think about. And why is there nutritional insecurity? Well, many, many reasons. But one of the founding reasons is a lack of high-quality starting material for indigenous farmers. And that, in the traditional potato value chain, is very difficult to create. And with our hybrids technology, we use true seeds, so seeds just like tomato seeds or broccoli seeds, instead of seed tubers. To plant 1 hectare of potato production, it takes 2.5 tons of seed tubers. Now, moving that from Mombasa to Rwanda is simply not possible in a quality way. But with our seeds, to plant that same hectare, it's 25 grams. You know, a farmer can put it inside his pocket and carry it with him, in most cases in Africa, with her, to the farm, and produce the same yield with less chemicals, with less impact on the environment in terms of transportation. And all of these reasons are why Solenta was founded, to change that value chain and make it much more sustainable.
So we all agree that our food system needs to shift towards a more sustainable one that is not generating those negative impacts, but that comes with a green premium. So I wanted to raise the topic on who is going to pay that extra cost of these sustainable practices, and how will we get these end products to the consumer without increasing the price and making products that are healthy, sustainable, and accessible for all.
At the end, I think that it's a question of the connections and the how large or how small is the supply chain. If we are able to take down the supply chains from 10 players, from 8 players to only 3 or 2 players, when you get from the peasants, farmers, and to the industry that is going to use the ingredients, there it's a big amount of efforts, materials, money that is going to be saved, and it's going to be not only impacting in the amount of money that the people needs to pay for the end product that it's produced with this kind of ingredients. This is one of the things that we are thinking on. And the other thing is the quality and the functionality of the ingredients that we put into the end products. It means that with less amount of ingredients, you are going to have a bigger amount or a bigger functionality or health property into the end product. That's why we are based in a scientific park here in Valencia. And at the end, we are mixing the sustainability, but also with the science and technology development, mostly based in biotechnology. And this is going to give us the key in order to produce better raw materials, better ingredients, in order to be really connected with the needs of the market. And in this moment, we are really interconnected, globally talking. So we need exactly who are producing what and where and how, and who needs this kind of products. At the end, it's a question of how we are going to manage these kind of connections. Are we going for the big and the old route, or are we going to the direct one and the one-to-one way in order to produce the impact and in order to reduce the cost or the financial cost of these kind of operations?
No, I think you bring up some good points about making more for less, or with less, basically. And it's something that we have to think about, because do we really all want to pay 15-20% more for our food? And do we really have to? Well, at the moment we are, for a lot of reasons. And those prices are not changing very much. They're just, the rate of the increase is continuing to be steady, let's say. Well, does it really have to be that way? I'm not sure. That's what ag innovation is about, is producing more with less. And if the governments around the world continue to put up barriers around companies like ours that limit the amount of innovation you can have, exactly what you said will happen. Everything will cost more. But if we're allowed as a society to think about how to apply innovation to where we really need it, and so that it creates useful long-term benefits, maybe we don't have to pay more in the long term.
Talking again about the consumer, as you said, the consumer probably doesn't want to pay that extra price for more sustainable products. But do they also want to change their type of diet just for the sake of saving the planet? That is a big question to make. So Charles, you said maize is less efficient or sustainable in comparison to potatoes. Why don't we all just eat potatoes? And here comes the interesting thing with food and nutrition. It's not just calories, but it's much more linked to our identity, our memories, our culture, and so on. So how are we going to convince, or do we have to convince the consumer to shift their diet so that we can achieve our goals?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. None of us like to change our diet. We grew up on a certain culture, right? And that culture had embedded in it certain types of vegetables, maybe protein, you name it. And making those changes is really, really complicated. Even the color of the skin of a potato is a cultural thing. In Pakistan, for example, it's almost impossible to sell a yellow-skinned potato. They want a red-skinned potato. But if you go to Europe, nobody likes red-skinned potatoes, really. They prefer yellow-skinned. And is there a reason? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends. In Pakistan, it's really easy to know what the reason is. Most of the potatoes are sold on the street in the sunshine. If you put yellow-skinned potatoes out there, they turn green very quickly. They become unappealing. A red-skinned potato turns green just as quickly, but you can't see it. It's a cosmetic effect. So people like it. But it's going to take time, and again, it's this innovation concept. We have to innovate in order to keep the food supply growing, and we also have to communicate with the consumers. And I think that's one thing that I can say as a seed industry. I've been involved in the seed industry most of my career. The seed industry has been notoriously bad at communication. and we have to improve, because at the end, the consumers are what's going to drive what's needed. And, well, it's all about talking.
From my point of view, I think that we have such amount of technology, such amounts of capacity of understand quotation marks, the natural systems that are able to produce the food, that it's a question of knowledge. It's a question of how to share this knowledge, how to communicate the knowledge and the information that we have access to. For example, in the case of potato, in Peru, we have the International Research Center of Potato. We are not talking about 1, 2, 3, 5 sorts or kind of potatoes. We are talking about thousands of potatoes. In the quinoa is the same, in the maize is the same. All this biodiversity, when we change it or when we shift it, the production only for a commercial one, for a commercialized one, we are going to have only a short varieties or a short number of varieties. But if we know which is the purpose of the product that you need to produce, which is the purpose of the naturally talking or nutritionally talking, of the products that we are going to put as raw material in the end product, maybe in that moment we can figure it out that a sort or of a kind of material that is produced locally is able to produce this action. And that's when we talk about the connections of the knowledge, the technology, and how we share all the information that we are able to catch through. And for example, when we talked about the sorts and about the biodiversity, the most important thing is to know about it, to take the time in order to measure what do we have locally, but at the end, if we need to do it in a commercial way, in a really big volumes at the end, if you have the methodology to measure the actions that we need to put into the production, after that to the transport, logistics, quality control, when it comes to the users, it's easily to work with this kind of information besides when you do not have it. Because if you do not measure the impact, if you do not measure the impact of the actions that you are making in the soil, in the people, in the society, or in the end consumer, then we are talking about a really not conscious thing.
What would you say are the most impactful innovations or technologies that could shift and lead us towards that better future of food within your sector? So with Charles, we were speaking earlier about the potential of gene editing, and that has also been a message that has been communicated wrongly, the GMO discourse. So what are these technologies, innovations? Are they always digital? Because maybe they can be based on what we knew many years ago on regenerative agriculture. What are the hot areas in each of your sectors?
No, we talked about a lot of technologies earlier, and I think, this idea of innovation and continuing innovation needs to be supported. Now, what does that look like in the end? I'm not 100% sure, but gene editing is now kind of, let's say, one of the new things in this industry, and it's a very fast, a very efficient way of creating locally adapted products that suit the needs of local consumers that would take perhaps decades or not even be possible in traditional selection. Well, within Solenta, hybrid breeding, which has been around since the early 1900s and was discovered well before that, is what we do. And so it is, let's say, a more traditional, non-GMO way of targeted breeding. And all of these things can be used along with the regenerative agricultural concept. And we have to do that anyway. If we're not going to look after the planet, we're not going to be able to produce food. And so we have to be able to come up with new products that use less water, that use less chemicals, and that use less petrol during the whole process of the production. And the only way we do that is with innovative breeding and selection, along with understanding local environments and local needs.
When you ask me about the technologies, for example, it's one of the technology that we are considering and to taking care of is the fermentation one. The fermentation technology is well known from decades, from centuries. And this is a really interesting technology that we can adapt and we can transfer to the cultures and to the people, to the producers, in order to make or produce a certain kind of bioactive ingredients or bioactive compounds that we need to make in the natural ingredients. And the other technology that it could be really interesting in the developed countries, I think it's going to be the stem cells culture, because we are able to, in this moment, we are able to identify which kind or which part of the cell is able or is responsible to produce certain kind of secondary bioactive. And we are able to adapt and to produce only this kind of bioactive compound in a stem cell culture. So if we are able to develop a system or a methodology in order to develop this kind of technology or develop this kind of ingredients or bioactives, really active ingredients, but considering that it's coming from the natives or the biodiversity of such a kind of country, and we are going to pay the money back for using your nature treasures, maybe in that sense, we are going to be able to develop certain kind of business or technology development for the near future. And this, we are not talking about 2-3 years from now. We are talking about that it's doing in this moment. This is developing in this moment now.
Well, I can give you an example, actually, of something like that. Within our company, we're already working on potatoes that produce a much higher volume of clean starch than is available in most other products. So it's produced very locally. It's much higher quality of starch, and that's one of the things we need. And if you're producing that kind of starch, you're also producing protein. Again, a vegetable-based protein, which we know we're going to need in the future.
So in the end, it's about controlling our species in somewhat way, becoming more and more intelligent with the data to make better decisions. And I would like to know, because we need to wrap up soon, about your views on this ideal future of food, and if you could pinpoint on what are some of the challenges or obstacles that are keeping us from getting to that ideal future. You mentioned, Charles, regulation can be a stopper. So what other pain points do we have as an industry to come forward, and where do we want to head?
In our case, we are facing a really a huge challenge, which is the climate change. And the climate change, if we do not face in a general way and also in a cooperative way, I think that we are not going to going through or to beat this big challenge. For example, in this moment we are having a lower production capacity of the native seeds in the regions, and that's why, because the climate has been changed a lot, and we need to adapt not only the seeds but also the methodologies and the agricultural practices than we have in the fields.
Now, I think when you talk about challenges, we have a lot of challenges in the value chain for our food. But some of the top challenges, I think, are the changing climate, and it is definitely changing. It's changing everywhere in the world. I think the population is growing dramatically and will continue to grow, and those things will put a tremendous amount of stress on what we have all kind of grown to know as the food value chain. We have to address that, and we have to address that with creative thinking and a lot of innovation. Like you say, using some species we haven't thought of before. I think that's a really great way. Take the case of the potatoes in the Andes, like you talked about. There are specific potatoes that just grow because they taste good, right there. And maybe that's something that can be adapted to other areas. And so we have to be very creative about how we do this. Otherwise, we're not going to be sustainable.
So thank you very much. We will be very creative, and we will try to bring to the plates of people what they want, but transforming the production and distribution of how we are getting this to their plate, because people don't want to eat an iPhone. They want to eat what's dear to their hearts. So it's great that there are companies like yours working on these challenges and using this as an opportunity to reach the market. So thank you all. I don't know if there's time for questions. If not, we will be around. And good afternoon.